Jennie Hays is here today, and let's see, we have some amazing things for her. She is a beyond mindset mentor and is a seasoned brain spotting practitioner and licensed paramedic with over 20 years of experience in helping women break through emotional and mindset blocks. Certified in brain spotting hypnosis and NLP, Jennie uses her unique blend of methods to help entrepreneurs overcome imposter syndrome, fear, and self-sabotage fast. Her superpower is reading between the to identify the root of what's holding women back in business and life. In her interview, Jennie will reveal how connecting the brain and body can create rapid transformations, empowering women to grow sustainable businesses with confidence and clarity. If you're ready to elevate your mindset, which I hope you are, everyone, and unlock your true potential, Jennie's insights are exactly what you need. And I want you all to help me welcome Miss Jennie Hays to the stage. Hello, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you? You just look
I,
radiant today.
thank you, thank you. It's all this excitement just rolling through, I tell you. Because I know, I'm going to tell you like this. I had a headache last night and I woke up like, ooh, I gotta get it going because I'm here for the people this weekend. So yes, it is full of adrenaline and excitement, all those good things, all of the above.
Well,
But
beautiful.
and thank you so much, and so are you. And thank you for being here. Let me get your banner and put it up on the screen
Oh,
here so
yeah.
we all know what you're
Yay.
talking about. And it's been like this is like the theme because most of the people that have been on so far has kind of navigated with that imposter syndrome and trying to get out of this, that fear. So it's like something that really bogs us. Everyone goes through it, women, entrepreneurs, everyone, women as a whole. And but before we get into everything that you're going to talk about, I
Mhm.
want you to, outside of what I read, I want you to tell the audience in the world, who is Jennie Hays?
So, outside of what you read, outside of business, I am a wife,
Mhm.
stepmom to three wonderful adults now with 3.5 grandbabies. We got one due in March.
Okay.
And yeah, just picked up some puppies off the side of the road yesterday. So you could either say that we are softies or dedicated animal lovers. Love my chickens, love my dogs and cats, and yeah, love to fish. I feel like I'm very down to earth.
Mhm.
I love music. I'm Christian, but yet I don't judge anybody else if they're not. And yeah, I guess that's, I prioritize in my life being able to find joy
Mm.
and play. And that's something that I've been able to bring into my working, which is amazing.
Yes, yes, yes. And just reading your bio and just listening to you, everything you just said right now. And it's like how you can just like merge it all together and have it all, and as long as you're balancing it, as long as you're
Right.
right, taking the right steps towards things. And I know that, that's your ultimate goal is about legacy and really transferring into that.
Right. And, as a woman who suffers with infertility,
Mm.
um, part of my journey that is not spoken about often is that journey to realize that um, the doors that opened for me, while I do have my grandbabies that are, I adopted sort of family,
Yeah.
um, there is a piece that's missing when you aren't able to have your own babies. And so my women, the people that I help, have become a huge piece of my legacy, because for each entrepreneur, each coach that goes out after a session with me and is able to break through that imposter syndrome and serve their
Mm.
community, I'm touching not only that coach's life, but their clients' lives and their clients' families' lives and their families. And it just is exponential. And I love that piece of it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. And you had the keyword with that, serve, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah,
We could talk about, oh, we have clients, we have customers, and if that service piece is not there in the most genuine, trustworthy way, you can
yeah.
hang it up. You can really hang it up. And let's go ahead and get into the whole imposter syndrome thing. But
Mhm.
first, before I ask this question, I'm going to ask you about this common issue. I want to really like just break down the definition or your interpretation of what imposter syndrome really is.
Um, I think very simply, it's that voice telling us you're just not good enough. Look at her, look at him, look at them. Doesn't matter what blanks we fill in, we're
Mm-hmm.
feeling that we're not equal. And um, the reality is we're not, but it's beautiful because if we were, oh my gosh, how boring the world would be.
It would definitely be boring. We don't need a boring world, definitely.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's amazing. So let me go ahead and just ask this then.
Sure.
Now, because it is a common issue, but not only a common issue, it's really that word for the last year, 2 years, you hear people talk about all the time, imposter syndrome and everything. So can you explain why mindset work alone often isn't enough to overcome it?
So mindset work, most of it is treating the outside symptoms. Very
Mm-hmm.
similar to if you go to your doctor and you have a broken bone and he gives you some Advil and says, just don't use it. And that's kind of what we're doing with mindset. We think that we're working on it. And eventually that bone would mend. It might mend crooked.
Mm-hmm.
We might be able to get through that on our own. But when we actually dive into the cause, to that mindset body, that mind body connection that for
Mm-hmm.
some reason in the last 100 years or so, we kind of threw away. When we dive in there, we're actually setting the bone. We go in and it's like, oh, here's that memory. We don't even
Mm-hmm.
have to know what the memory is. The body knows. Here's the memory that's causing the emotion. We can clear the emotion, which allows that memory to be processed the way that it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
and it's no longer in the way. So, tapping, wonderful, wonderful surface level treatment.
Yeah.
I do it with some of my clients because that's where they're at. They're not ready for that deeper clearance.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it for myself for some very sudden onset claustrophobia. It's very
Mm-hmm.
odd. I was changing clothes one day and my shirt got stuck and I was just like panicking, which
Mm-hmm.
it's not the kind of person I am. And so I thought I'm going to try tapping because I didn't know anything else. And it was like, let's do it. So I did it. It cleared it, but it came back. With brain
Mm-hmm.
spotting, what I am finding, and not only in myself, but in my clients, is that it doesn't come back because you've processed the memory that caused it. Even like I said, even if you don't know what it is, even if you can't pull it up, you don't have to relive it.
Wow. That's amazing. And let's go into like explain what brain spotting really is that, people who are like brain spotting, I never heard
Right.
about that. Yeah.
And I think that's going to be most of our audience. Brain spotting is relatively new. It was created by a gentleman named David Grand, who is a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and it's based off of EMDR, which is eye movement rapid desensitization. And they've been
Mm-hmm.
using this with people with PTSD. So now that you know where it came from, and that still means nothing to you, let me break it down simpler. Um, let's pretend, and for those of you who have anatomy, please forgive me, this is not anatomically correct. Let's pretend the brain is a cauliflower. Okay. We're at home. We've got this huge head of cauliflower. We're going to cut it in half and look at it. You
Mm-hmm.
have florets on the outside. You have those stems that you never know whether to keep them or get rid of them because you're not sure. And then you have that big stem.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our demonstration, the florets are the part of the brain that does the thinking. It also does the memory storage. And just like the cauliflower's 3D, the brain stores memory in 3D. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The pieces, the little stems that we don't know what to do with, That is like our limbic system, our lizard brain.
Mhm.
Pardon me. This is the part of our brain where that fight or flight or fawn response lives. You know, when you get up and you don't know why, but your husband says something that normally wouldn't piss you off, and then all of a sudden you're in a terror and you're like, what am I doing this? This doesn't make sense. That's that middle part of the brain. Okay. And then for our purposes, the stem of the cauliflower is going to be the body, that
Mhm.
the feelings in the body. So we have something happen to us. We feel it. It
Mhm.
comes up into the limbic system. And the limbic system goes, ooh, is this dangerous? Is this going to kill us? If it's not, then it goes, okay, we'll pass this up to the memory part and we'll store it. But if it thinks, oh my gosh, this is going to kill us, it says, I'm just going to keep this right here. I'm just going
Mm.
to put this little capsule, this little time capsule right here and store it. Great. It didn't kill us, but now we have this unprocessed, painful memory.
Mm.
And this happens over and over again. Well, as life happens, these capsules start to leak.
Mhm.
And so, whereas maybe it was a car wreck where you were severely hurt or something that was your first trauma, and it doesn't have to be anywhere near that big.
Mhm.
Now, anytime you see a truck turning right, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I
Yeah.
do? And so when it leaks, it causes interruption in our lives. It causes us problems. It can cause us imposter syndrome, right?
Mm.
So we go in with Brainspotting and basically we pop that open and clean it
Mhm.
out. And we do that using a process that you were born with. I was born with. Everybody that's watching this was born with. It's
Mhm.
called external regulation.
Okay.
So when you see a baby that's learning to walk and they're toddling along and all of a sudden they fall and they hit their butt, the first thing they do is look around the room to see who's watching and what
Uh-huh.
their reaction is, because it doesn't know how to react on its own, right?
Okay. You're
And
right.
so if you're upset, it starts crying. And if you laugh it off, it's like, okay, let's get up and go some more.
Mhm.
That external regulation
Mm.
provides safety while you're popping that open so that the limbic system, that lizard brain, doesn't go, oh, yeah, this was going to kill us. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, this was rough, but I've got somebody right here to
Mhm.
balance that so I can look at
Mm.
that and pass it up for processing. And it's so fast. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm just like, our bodies is so intricate in
Mhm.
the brain itself. And I love the analogy with the example with the cauliflower, because I'm sitting here thinking like, oh wow, that does look like the brain. You know, when you really think about it. Yes, you all, yes, yes, yes. I could be
Yeah.
nerdy, okay? I could be nerdy. I did like biology in school, and but it really does make a difference. And when you do understand these things, and a lot of times people don't get that deep. They feel like, oh, to think about it in that capacity, that's too deep. That's
Mhm.
taboo. That's, there's so many different ways. But when you really look at it, and there's things that we don't understand, we just know that we react. We just know
Right.
that we withdraw or whatever the reason is. And we just say, oh, I just not feeling it. Or I'm just the PTSD, all these other things. And we just react accordingly. But it's the way our body, our brain, and everything is made up. And not to
Mhm.
even talk about the conscious level, which is a whole level
Right.
layer in,
Yeah.
and it's just like I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, I don't ever recall really having imposter syndrome, but I probably did, because I guess if I ever just sat back and said, you know what, I could be great in the shadows. I don't have to do all of this. I don't have to show up. But I know there was something in me that just happened. It just switched. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, the pandemic just did a work on me. I'm just going to just tell everybody. It just did a work on me. But you have to be in tune and
Mhm.
self-aware enough with yourself to be able to identify to make the change. But if
Right.
not, then you have people like Jennie who can help you go through that process and help you to unlock those things. And I just love how you did that and just talked about it. And yeah, okay. Let me get back on track with my questions. Do you have anything you want to add?
I just wanted to jump in real quick because a piece that I neglected to say, and you said a very key word, feel.
Yeah.
When we're doing the brain spotting, we're not digging in the brain, literally. We're using the eyes to find the memory, which is kind of cool. Hence the term brain spotting. We
Yeah.
use a spot the brain, the eyes find, but we're feeling where that is. So that hesitation, that tightness, the heaviness, we tune into that, and that's how we connect the brain and the body and allow that to open up that capsule. So it's a very, very important piece of it. Very.
Wow. Because, you know, that really does take me into my next question.
Good.
So let's just stay
it.
on it. Yeah. So, you know, explain how we already talked about that part, but what are some other ways, you know, addressing those feelings? Like people feel these things, and let's go in that to a little bit more and just identify, because I know there's a lot of people out here is watching. It's like, oh my gosh, I was just feeling this morning, you know, whatever it could be, especially for women entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So, so I think the question was, what else can we do like in the immediate, right? Because
Yeah,
brain
to
spotting
address.
really is a one-on-one thing. You can do group brain spotting, but there's really power in the one-on-one. But some things to deal with it right now. So again, we talked about tapping.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. It can definitely get you through the now. Another thing you can do is something that our society and our culture here in America tends to shy away from, which is feel the feeling. Because they find that that is one thing that when people have developed PTSD, and again, they don't study, they're starting to study imposter syndrome, but really they've got a lot of studies on PTSD. And it's the inability to complete the feeling that causes the storage of these memories. So feel the feeling. Another really kind of fun thing I learned, play Tetris.
Oh,
There's
okay.
something that connects the brain and the body when you sit down and you're going through something traumatic and you play Tetris, of all things. And I have no idea why, really. I don't understand the science behind it or why they even decided to do it, but it was a really cool study. And, you know, I would try it. I wouldn't hesitate. But again, I talk about play, and that's one thing that you really have to be willing to do when you're moving through these things. Because if you take yourself too seriously, you're going to fall right back further into that imposter syndrome.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. I love the fact you talked about Tetris. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know, I might have to go play it, because I guess it's something with the eye, the movement, the brain, and everything,
Yeah.
and
It,
just problem solving and thinking.
it does something with activating the way that the brain moves things into memory, I guess, that allows you to kind of skip past that limbic response. But I would be lying if I said I truly understood it. I just kind of breezed through it. It was like,
Yeah.
we'll just try it. We'll play.
Wow. That's really deep. Yeah. Because like I said before, we've never really think about the connectivity of what you're talking about to our everyday life and how we approach business or how we don't approach business. And I know there's so many people out here, it's like, okay, you know, I'm ready to take the next step on the next level of business, but I don't know. And
Right.
we kind of let those external voices kind of, you know,
Oh,
help us
guilty.
make that decision. Oh, let's talk about
Guilty.
your guilt.
Guilty. Oh my gosh. That's the reason I'm doing this, is
Yeah.
because I spent 5 years trying to get my insulin resistance coaching program going. And I knew that I knew the information. I knew that people needed it. I knew all the things I've spent so much money. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But anytime I got to the marketing part where I had to actually go and tell people, I'd shut down. And it'd be like, oh, I just don't feel like doing it right now. What if I say something wrong? Oh, I don't want to do that. You know, they're not going to, I don't want to bother anybody. That's a big one people will say. And so once I started using this tool for others, I started seeing the amazing changes in just an hour. And it was like, oh, I need some of that. And so I did. And that's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for brain spotting. Yeah.
Well,
So I
we're
am
glad you're here.
100%.
Glad you're here. Now, if we probably have already touched on some of this, but let's get back into like with you know, walking us through how you help someone, you know, with
Yeah.
imposter syndrome go into like deeper approach.
So the way that I have my sessions set up, we come in and we do a 30-minute intake. And I really get to know your support systems, the way your brain and body, the way that you kind of function, who you are. And I know that sounds like a lot for 30 minutes, but there's a lot of inference and some really good questions. And then we start the session the next time. We set aside 50 minutes. And what we do is we irritate and agitate that feeling. We bring it up. A lot of times that's by talking. You don't have to talk during brain spotting. I've had people be completely silent. I had one person who turned completely around and faced the other way. Doesn't matter. They still get results. It's crazy. So we agitate that sensation, and then we find your brain spot. So what we're doing is we're looking where in the 3D world is that memory that's blocking us stored. And so we use our eyes to find it, and that becomes our anchor. And the longer you can stay on the anchor, usually the deeper the healing goes. And then once we find that spot, we start tuning into the body, and we feel the feeling, and we follow the feeling. And I'm there as a guide. I'm there as that external safety net. I'm there to say, okay, get out of your head. Let's feel the feeling. Let the memories come and go. There's going to be flashes. Some people hear words. Some people see pictures. Some, experience memories. Some don't do any of that at all. They're just in the feeling. And there's this, it's a beautiful thing, because most people have this darkness at the first, and it's like, all I'm doing is complaining. It's like, all right, just keep doing it. And it'll be negative. And then there's this click where the mind and the body connect. And it's like, oh, I never thought of that before, or I never saw it that way. And it can be super simple. I had somebody the other day, his was like, if I fall down, I can get back up again. Mine was, I just need to practice my business the way that I need to reflect who I am. These are things we all hear, right? So we get to that point, and then we start really exploring what that looks like, how that's going to be applied. It's exhausting. Never do brain spotting early in the day when you have a busy day. You're going to come back and meet with me again 2 weeks later, and we're going to look back on the brain spotting and see what growth and what changes. Do we have more work to do? There are a few people that will need more than one session. In the last 2 years, I think I've had 3 that needed additional sessions. But I will tell you, it's addicting. And so sometimes people will be like, ooh, we fixed that one. I have this other thing that's bothering me. Because I always say, don't worry about clearing demons, because there's always another one waiting.
Because on different levels, another devil.
Someone's there, just go ahead and let's get rid of this one.
Like you said, there's always something. But the thing is wanting to first, the desire and the no to say, I have to get to this place. I have to overcome. There's something that needs to be untapped or unlocked within me, and that can, take me to that level of success that they need. So how fast are some of the people you've worked with, like how fast have some of their breakthroughs been? What are some of the results?
An hour.
You guys, you could get changed in an hour.
I know it's not a great business model for me now. Come on, think about this, but the reality is that one of my very first people, right after I learned brain spotting, I was working with a therapist, and I was doing accountability business coaching with her. And she was like, oh, please, I just want to be able to tell people about my new practice. I can't even tell my doctor, and I just want to tell my doctor. I was like, okay, we tried so many different things. Nothing seemed to be working. I was like, let's try this new thing I'd learned. And so we did a session of brain spotting. She had her physical that afternoon. And not only did she go and tell her doctor that afternoon, but she turned around and called 2 other physicians that she had worked with in the past, and had a list of 25 people from a previous career that she was making her way through. It is so amazing. And one person, her realization was it's in her book. And by the time I saw her 2 weeks later, she was 8 chapters into her book. It really just, it's like a broom sweeping the cobwebs.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
That is. Wow, that's amazing, and especially because writer's block happens so easy,
Mhm.
when you're writing a book. And I know when I first wrote my first book, I was like, oh, I want to write this book, and I'm gonna have it out by my birthday. It came out, and birthday came around 2 months later. Oh yeah, still need to write this book. Blah 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 blah. Blah. And every time I was set that deadline, I was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get to. And it was something I knew like the
Yeah,
back of my hand, and
that's a
I had
block.
yeah. So eventually,
Yeah.
what made me write the book, I needed to.
Hmm.
So I'm one of those like, oh yeah, you got to write it by now. I was like, oh, I got to hurry up, and it was a last minute write. Hurry up and get on Amazon.
Deadlines can do that. Yep.
But you will save yourself a lot, and really, being self-aware, knowing that you need that type of breakthrough that will take you to the next level. And even I was thinking about talking about imposter syndrome, and I never thought about this until today. That's just a mask for procrastination, really. Because procrastination in itself is a beast that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And if you fall to it, have fallen into it so many times, but that could be like that mask just to procrastination in itself.
Um, yeah. I mean, I know that there are people that procrastinate just because procrastination, but I think procrastination is a symptom
Mm,
more than imposter syndrome masking it.
mm,
Procrastination tends to happen on the surface, and there's a certain amount of procrastination that's good because we
mhm.
do a lot of creative work in procrastination. But yeah, I really think that a lot of times we miss imposter syndrome because it's like, oh, I'm just too lazy.
Yeah. Mm,
When really, if we were to examine it, it's like, oh, no, there's something. I did it myself with my website. 18
yeah.
months it took me. And it was like, oh, crud, this is a block. This is before I had Brainspotting in my back pocket. But I recognized finally it was a block. And it was like, you just keep putting it off. It's not that you don't have time. Just do
Mhm.
it. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you can just move through things. That
Right.
was,
Like you said,
yeah.
recognizing that it is being honest with yourself. Because
Mhm.
that's where that recognition comes from. It's like when you could really be honest with yourself, and it's like, you're just being lazy. Just set some time, get it done, and
Yeah,
do that. So before we got have one more question.
sure.
All right. So for someone listening right now,
Mhm.
and who's struggling with imposter syndrome, what's one thing they can do today to start addressing a deeper level issue?
Um, I would recommend, so first of all, I do have a giveaway that I can put underneath. I'll give you a link on how to move through a mindset exercise.
Mhm,
But I would say, like you just said, acknowledge it. Go, ooh, that's what this is. It's not that I'm really not good enough. It's that there's something in my body, there's something in my brain that's not aligned that
mhm,
says I'm not good enough. And the
mhm,
only way that's going to go away is to face it
mhm.
or to do it.
That's really good. That's really good. Yes, and definitely, put the link in the chat. So before you go,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely put it in the chat, and we'll make sure we get it. Everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you, Jennie, because this
Oh,
has been amazing, amazing conversation. And I love it. So I hope you guys have gotten enough information out of it to really start facing what it is that's holding you back. And if you can't, you know who to contact. You have Jennie right here
yeah.
that
I'm
can
happy to help.
help you. Yes, definitely. So thank you so much for being here, Jennie. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for hosting. This is an amazing opportunity for business women everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you.